Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot, a weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location deep behind enemy lines in Denver, Colorado. Here we speak the truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. And now, without further ado, here's the host of the Hispanic Patriot, Hugo Chavez Ray. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hispanic Patriot. Tonight, I want to touch on several topics of importance to our nation. If you have been paying attention to the news lately, you probably already know that a fourth indictment has been handed down against President Trump, this time in Fulton County, Georgia. Like the rest of the indictments, it is without any basis at all. This is simply about muzzling the leading candidate in the opposition party. I can't believe I'm saying these things in the United States of America. But this persecution of the former president of the United States has now reached a fever pitch. The Biden administration lackeys and the mainstream media are absolutely beyond themselves to declare that the person they hate with a passion, Donald J. Trump, is the target of a mountain of made-up allegations, all in an effort to interfere in the 2024 presidential election. The target is the chief political rival of the current occupant of the White House, who himself is under suspicion of a variety of crimes against the state, including bribery, influence peddling, and who is being propped up by the most corrupt administration in American history. The Biden crime syndicate, as I call it, continues unabated with the help of the lapdog media who cover for them at every turn. I can't believe we're even in America anymore. This is more like a banana republic where political rivals jail their opponents in an effort to rig elections in their favor. If what is happening in our country today is not tantamount to election interference, then I don't know what is. The latest indictment brought from Fulton County, Georgia by DA Fani Willis, a Democrat hack, is rife with corruption. The sealed draft of the indictment was accidentally leaked to Reuters several hours before the grand jury had even voted. When asked about that revelation at the press conference, Fani Willis deflected and said she had no knowledge of the system and how it handles documents. So we're supposed to believe that the DA who routinely deals with grand juries and other indictment materials, that she had no knowledge of how the indictment was leaked to Reuters long before the grand jury had even voted? I don't know about you, but I smell a rat. And if you're among those who can accept that explanation from her, then you need therapy. The latest charges leveled against President Trump include violating the Georgia RICO Act, the Racketeer Influence and Corruption Organizations Act, solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer, conspiracy to commit false statements and writings, conspiracy to commit filing false documents, conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, and filing false documents. Oh yeah, and the kitchen sink. Folks, I don't know how to how I can even continue with this charade, but I mean, in Fulton County, Georgia, one of the most corrupt counties in Georgia, we have a rogue DA who is now following the orders of her master, Joseph R. Biden. On Monday afternoon, the Fulton County Court's website posted a document listing the exact same charges included in the indictment released Monday night in a press conference. Yeah, I'm scratching my head too. But Fani Willis doesn't know how that happened. Right. And I'm the Pope. These people and I use the term people very loosely, have absolutely no shame. In fact, I doubt they can even spell the word. They are despicable in their actions and violation of the U.S. Constitution. Here's what was said about the leaked document. Now listen carefully to the way they describe the leaked document. Quote, the Office of the Fulton County Clerk of Superior and Magistrate Courts has learned of a fictitious document that has been circulated online and reported by various media outlets to the Fulton County Special Purpose Grand Jury, the court said in a statement Monday afternoon. It continues, while there have been no documents filed today regarding such, all members of the media should be reminded that documents do not bear an official case number, filing date, and the name of the clerk of courts in concert are not considered official filings and should not be treated as such. And yet, it was verbatim the same language used in the indictment later that night. Trump attorneys Drew Findling and Jennifer Little slammed the Fulton County District Attorney's Office Monday afternoon. Quote, the Fulton County District Attorney's Office has once again shown that they have no respect for the integrity of the grand jury process, Findling and Little said. This was not a simple administrative mistake. A proposed indictment should only be in the hands of the district attorney's office, yet it somehow made its way to the clerk's office and was assigned a case number and a judge before the grand jury even deliberated. They added, this is emblematic of the pervasive and glaring constitutional violations which have plagued this case from the very inception. But after the grand jury actually deliberated, voted, and handed up the indictment, Willis held a press conference to explain the charges. She was immediately asked by a Fox News reporter for an explanation of the leak. Willis deflected. No, I can't tell you anything about what you refer to, Willis said. What I can tell you is that we had a grand jury here in Fulton County. They deliberated till almost 8 p.m., although I knew the outcome. I just threw that in there. If not right after 8 p.m., an indictment was returned. It was true billed. And you know, we now have an indictment. She added, I am not an expert on clerk's duties or even administrative duties. I wouldn't know how to work that system. And so I'm not going to speculate. Next question. Pathetic is the kindest word I can use to describe that DA. Also, someone please explain to me why a local DA is bringing these charges against the former president. It seems to me that such charges, which were allegedly perpetrated against the state of Georgia, would fall under the jurisdiction of the state attorney general, not a flunky local DA. But I'm sure she was handpicked by the Biden crime family to persecute Donald Trump. Yes, I said persecute, because this crap is sure as hell not a legal prosecution. Folks, we are now officially in a constitutional crisis in America. Some would argue it began as far back as 2016. The inauguration of the 45th President of the United States had not even concluded when a talking head on CNN uttered these words, "Let the impeachment begin." Let's analyze why the left hates Trump so much. Like Wile E. Coyote learns over and over again, no matter what he does, the Roadrunner just keeps tweeting on down the road at record speed. They worked to impeach Trump since the day he took office and finally achieved it. Twice, only to have him exonerated by the Senate. They've mocked him, his tweets, and his priorities. They've drowned him in negative media coverage. They've called him a narcissist, a tyrant, and an uncaring fraud. But nothing is working, and the rage on social media just grows by the day as they are growing signs that no Democrat is in a position to stop his march to a second term. Hence, the flurry of indictments to try to do just that. Why such deep hatred? Let's analyze that. Number one, nothing works in derailing this president, and it's driving leftists crazy. From accusation after accusation spread by an anti-Trump media to flimsy articles of impeachment, their attacks missed the mark. Now, just months before an election, Trump supporters, like mad hornets, are ready to rush to the polls to give their verdict to the Democrats' impeachment fiasco. Number two, leftists realize that many voted for Trump because they wanted anyone but Hillary Clinton. But now, his supporters are amazed at how much this street-fighting outsider has been able to get done. He's delivered what many past Republicans have just succeeded in talking about. From cutting taxes and regulations to stimulating our economy, and from appointing conservative federal judges to fostering energy independence, supporters can't wait to see what Trump can accomplish in a second term. The left is frustrated that Trump has delivered a track record that's hard to beat. Plain and simple. Number three, the left has run up against a president where name-calling doesn't work. Trump doesn't care if he's not liked by the left or the fake news. His enemies keep trying to find something he's done that will stick. But when leftists level an attack, it's like water rolling off a duck's back. His opponents look at each other in amazement with but one plea. Quick, go find something before the election. Number four, Trump bypasses the media and goes directly to the people. He's not dependent upon a hostile media to get his message out. Trump's tweets and rallies keep faithful fed with the information he wants them to celebrate. He doesn't let Democrats get away with their lies. Trump lets voters know that America is exceptional, that patriotism is good, that all lives matter, and that jobs matter to all races, genders, or classes. Number five, Trump is piece by piece dismantling the socialist entitlement transformation President Obama started to build. With Democratic candidates moving further to the left and talking Democratic socialists, President Trump has made it clear America will never be a socialist country. The people who earn their way by working hard in America have a champion committed to protecting them from the selfish takers who would rather live off someone else's hard work. Number six, President Trump is taking on the task of getting rid of the deep state bureaucrats embedded within the federal government. The Democrat stronghold of the overpaid bureaucrats around Washington are afraid. He's promised to fire those who are not necessary and end duplication of departments and programs. That means getting rid of unnecessary regulations and the overpaid busybodies who enforce them. Number seven, while Democrats talk about giving benefits to illegal aliens, President Trump talks about continuing to build the border wall and updating America's immigration process. Citizenship counts and should not be granted easily. He values immigration, what legal immigrants should and can bring to our country to make America stronger, but has no plans on making it easy on illegal immigrants. In short, leftists are fuming. Their Trump derangement syndrome is giving them headaches that are showing no signs of going away. With his glowing popularity and their uninspiring progressive candidates, Democrats are feeling helpless and increasingly hopeless. Again, hence the flurry of indictments. If conservatives were facing a liberal president as effective in transforming America as Trump is in preserving it, we'd feel the same way. Let's do everything we can to put this man back in office this upcoming election. Give him control of the House and the Senate. He deserves 4 more years, and America's future depends on it. Now, we want to give credit to the author of the previous section. Mr. Terry Paulson is a PhD psychologist, author, and professional speaker on earned optimism, making change work, claiming your American dream, and becoming a conservative values voter. Now, let's contrast what all these corrupt prosecutors are doing to Trump with what they didn't do to Hillary Clinton, shall we? Hillary Clinton, in an interview with Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, grinning like a Cheshire cat, on Monday said that she doesn't feel any satisfaction at her former Republican rival's legal woes. Liar. I give her 10 Pinocchios for that one. She went on to say, I feel great, just great. I'll bet. Profound sadness that we have a former president who has been indicted for so many charges that went right to the heart of whether or not our democracy would survive, she said. There's that word democracy again. It's like nails on a chalkboard to me. This is a terrible moment for our country. Wink, wink. We have a former president accused of these terribly important crimes, she added. The only satisfaction may be that the system is working. When I read that, I spit up my coffee. Remember earlier when I said these people have no shame or conscience? Well, Lara Trump, in an appearance on Fox News' Hannity Tuesday, accused Clinton of laughing at the former president. I quote, she led into that interview with Rachel Maddow, by the way, laughing. She was laughing about this last night. Let me tell you something. There is nothing funny about this, she complained. There's nothing funny about the erosion of our American values, about the erosion of our Constitution, about the weaponization of our systems like third world countries do against political opponents. She continued, nothing funny, Sean, about our current president of the United States selling out our country to enrich his family, and of all people, Hillary Clinton, to be talking about this, who admitted to doing things criminally that are far worse than anything Donald Trump is even accused of doing. Yet, as you pointed out, no indictment there. Let's revisit 2016, shall we? The election. Hillary claimed for years that Trump was an illegitimate president because the American people saw right through her charade and soundly rejected her. By electing Donald Trump, we have not only changed the course of history and dashed all of those norms to pieces, but we also made a stand that we could no longer settle for a blatantly corrupt political class that repeatedly gets away with crimes for which many of us would serve years in prison. Perhaps no candidate in modern history better represents such arrogance and defiance of the rule of law than Hillary Clinton. Over the course of her nearly 40 years in public life, Hillary has racked up enough scandals and outright crimes to put Frank Underwood to shame. If you don't know who Frank Underwood is, look him up. Although there are a plethora of wrongdoings by Hillary Clinton, we could enumerate that alternate between the offensive, the immoral, and the hypocritical. We're going to provide a more concise list of the most patently criminal acts Hillary Clinton has committed during her political career. The media has tried to label these crimes conspiracies, but they all are the truth and nothing but the truth. Let's take a look at some of corrupt Hillary's crimes. Let's start with whitewater and cattle futures. Some of you may be familiar with that. The rest of you may need to look that up. Some of the Clintons' earliest crimes have become their most oft forgotten, even though they had their fingerprints on a number of cases of extremely shady business practices, including insider trading and bribery in the late 1970s and the early 80s. The most infamous example of the Whitewater controversy, in which then Governor and First Lady of Arkansas, Bill and Hillary Clinton, invested in the real estate company Whitewater Development Corporation, which was owned by two of their closest associates at the time, James and Susan McDougal. How convenient was that? The McDougals also owned a savings and loan association called Madison Guaranty. Both Whitewater and Madison Guaranty eventually went under after the Clintons had invested tens of thousands of dollars into the former. In what appeared to be an attempt to pay back the McDougals, banker David Hale eventually testified under oath that Bill Clinton attempted to pressure him into giving a $300,000 loan as a bribe to Susan McDougal. Although the McDougals were eventually charged with a variety of crimes, including fraud, no charges were ever brought against the Clintons for their involvement in it. Sound familiar? This would prove not to be an isolated incident, as Hillary herself eventually came under fire for a similar financial irregularity in the late 1970s. After trading in cattle futures contracts with a starting investment of just $1,000, she netted a return of almost $100,000 after just 10 months before stopping her trading. Such a sky-high profit is extremely unlikely to happen naturally, and although a number of scenarios were proposed, including bribery and insider trading, Hillary, of course, faced no charges yet again. Russian pay-to-play schemes projection has become a favorite distraction technique for the left, especially with the media serving as their mouthpiece. While baseless allegations of Russian collusion have been relentlessly thrown at President Trump and his administration, the real instances of collusion between a high-ranking U.S. official and Russian forces come from the other side of the political aisle. Surprise, surprise. For a number of years, the Clinton Foundation, a supposedly charitable organization, served as the front for many of the biggest payments to the Clinton family by those seeking influence, both domestic and international. But the most glaring example of such a pay-to-play scheme involved the Clintons and a foreign actor is the Uranium One case. Uranium One is a Canadian uranium mining company that first acquired another Canadian mining company, Eurasia Energy, before Uranium One was subsequently acquired by the Russian state-owned corporation Rosatom. It was eventually revealed by the New York Times, of all sources, that Eurasia's owner, Frank Giustra, had donated as much as $145 million to the Clinton Foundation just 2 years before selling his company to Uranium One for $3.7 billion. That's billion with a B. Then it was revealed that the chairman of Uranium One, Ian Telfer, had also made a donation of over $2 million to the Clinton Foundation before the company's acquisition of Rosatom. The plot thickens. Shortly after the successful acquisition of Uranium One, which took place during Obama's first term, while Clinton was Secretary of State, Bill Clinton was paid $500,000 by the Russian bank Renaissance Capital to give a speech in Moscow. Wish I could get those numbers for my speeches. Not so coincidentally, this took place just a few months after Obama signed the New START nuclear treaty with Russia, an initiative that was spearheaded by Secretary Clinton. Although the treaty proved to be a disaster that most likely will not be extended, the Clintons did walk away with a significantly fuller bank account. Are you seeing a pattern here? What this all boils down to is a clear-cut case of the Clintons organizing a massive international deal that saw a significant amount of uranium, a key natural resource that is fundamental to national security, and American dominance on the world stage signed away to Russia. That's treason. The Clintons bargained with nuclear capabilities and completely sold America down the river just so they could make millions. This can only be described as collusion and pay to play. Emails and the Espionage Act. This is perhaps the most significant of Hillary's scandals, not only because of its central role in her 2016 loss, but because of the sheer hypocrisy that was highlighted as a result. Using an unsecured private email server for government use, of course, is a crime in and of itself. But in true Nixonian fashion, Clinton took it a step further by covering up the underlying crime. She initially refused to turn over the server in question, even as she used the server's eventual breach by hackers as supposed proof of Russian interference. When the server was finally handed over to the FBI, it was done only after more than 30,000 emails had been erased, with Clinton claiming without evidence that all of the deleted emails were personal emails. When further questioned about deliberately wiping the server, Clinton gave a response that feigned ignorance but reeked of arrogance, sarcastically asking, "What, like with a cloth or something?" Remember that in the congressional hearings? It's not hard to imagine that if President Trump had made a similar statement, the media would have had an absolute field day with such a response and used it to call into question his intelligence, integrity, or even his ability to hold the office. But Clinton, as always, got a free pass from the media. This deliberate obstruction of justice and subsequent destruction of justice of evidence was the same crime for which Richard Nixon was ultimately driven out of office. But Clinton's mass deletion of evidence was on a vastly larger scale than the mere 18 minutes of Watergate tapes that Nixon erased and the bungled burglary he tried to hide. Furthermore, with a wide variety of matters discussed and shared on Clinton's private server, it's clear that far greater national security risks were taken by Clinton than by Nixon, who only sought to cover up a single crime that was relatively petty by comparison. In both cases, the cover-up far exceeded the original crime, but while both of them eventually did face consequences, Nixon at least did so on his own terms and eventually admitted to his own wrongdoing, resigning the office in atonement. Clinton actively sought to take the highest office in the land, even despite her crimes. Her comeuppance delivered by the American people at the ballot box in perhaps the greatest act of non-judicial justice ever administered in modern American history. That brings us to Benghazi. My blood boils when I think of this one. By the far most serious crime that Hillary ever committed is the one that produced an actual body count. As expansive, egregious, and unpunished as her other crimes may be, nothing compares to the scandal in which then Secretary of State Clinton took a series of decisions that directly led to the deaths of 4 brave Americans, only for her to then lie about the circumstances of her deaths and cover up and her own involvement in them. Ambassador to Libya, J. Christopher Stevens, made numerous requests for security at the U.S. mission in Benghazi to be increased, as he feared for his own safety and the safety of other Americans present at the compound. All of these requests were denied time and again by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's State Department, a fact that even the left-wing fact-checking website PolitiFact has admitted to be true. This failure to provide more security left the compound all the more unprepared when the terrorist group Ansar al-Sharia launched its fatal attack on September 11, 2012, killing Ambassador Stevens and 3 other Americans. Information Officer Sean Smith, CIA operatives Glenn Doherty and Tyrone Woods, who bravely fought to defend their fellow Americans against overwhelming odds. But in true Clintonian fashion, Hillary just couldn't stop with the original scandal and had to rush to cover up her own culpability. Rather than accept blame for blatantly refusing to tighten security at the Benghazi mission, Clinton and others in the Obama administration made shallow and disingenuous attempts to claim that the attack was not the result of a well-coordinated plan by a terrorist organization on the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. Instead, they insisted the violence was supposedly the result of a spontaneous demonstration against an anti-Muslim YouTube video that virtually no one had ever seen before. To this end, the administration ordered then United Nations Ambassador Susan Rice to repeat this cover story on 5 different Sunday news shows on the same day. The man responsible for creating the YouTube video, an Egyptian-born U.S. resident named Nakula, was subsequently arrested, charged, and paraded around as the scapegoat for the entire attack. That's right, Clinton's scapegoat again. Clinton even had the audacity to promise to the families of the victims that the administration would hunt down and punish not the terrorists who actually killed their loved ones, but the filmmaker whom she blamed as if he was somehow responsible for those deaths. Keep in mind, in terms of sheer quantity of wrongdoings attributable to Hillary Clinton, this list consists of just a fraction. The fact that she got away with all of these is a testament to the legal double standard from which the corrupt elite benefits. There have been other, even more in-depth studies and compilations of her actions and subsequent lack of consequences by such men as Peter Schweizer in his best-selling book Clinton Cash. If you haven't read that book, I recommend it highly. It will blow your mind. Although she consistently managed to escape legal consequences for her actions, the Clintons' decade-long streak of getting away scot-free finally came to an end at the hands of 63 million Americans on November 8, 2016. Even if Hillary spends a single day in prison for any of her crimes, from the millions of dollars of dark money to the lives lost on her watch, the eventual final political outcome for her fading into irrelevance, with a lost presidential race as her last accomplishment, just might be the most satisfying outcome of all. Personally, I would like to see Hillary, Obama, and others in orange jumpsuits for the damage they have caused to this country. Let's face it, the left, I call them Marxists, are obsessed with Donald Trump. TDS is very real. There has never been anything even close to the vitriol hurled at one of America's greatest presidents in terms of accomplishment. Was he perfect? Of course not. There was only one perfect man in all of history, and they crucified him. The fact is that if Donald Trump laid his right hand upon a Bible and swore, "The sky is blue, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west," and the New York Yankees had the most series titles with 27, many in the media on the left still might call him a liar. But facts are facts. Just because many people hate Trump does not mean that he can't be correct sometimes, or even often. Tens of millions of Americans believe in his policies. Hillary Clinton may think of Trump supporters as deplorables, but most of these people consider themselves to be pragmatic, common sense, rule of law, patriotic Americans who are trying to survive difficult times. When Trump offers an opinion or makes a pronouncement, he's generally directing his remarks to that demographic, but those statements can be factual. Consider the 2 recent broadsides from him. Trump has been out of the Oval Office for more than 30 months, and yet he seems to be living rent-free in the minds of many leftist Americans and international elites who have come to loathe him. First, Trump reached out to the Pulitzer Prize administrator to rescind the 2018 prizes for national reporting awarded to the New York Times and the Washington Post for their investigative reporting of the then alleged Trump-Russia interference collusion campaign into the 2016 presidential campaign. Said the former president to Pulitzer office, "There is no dispute that the Pulitzer Board's awards to those media outlets was based on false and fabricated information that they published. The continuing publication and recognition of the prizes on the board's website is a distortion of fact and a personal defamation that will result in the filing of litigation if the board cannot be persuaded to do the right thing on its own." Now, all but the most partisan Democrats realize that the rumors, charges, and investigations of Trump's alleged coercion with Russia during the campaign were suspect from the start. Those allegations were tainted by troubling partisan connections to the Clinton campaign and Obama administration officials, including, sadly, some in the FBI and the Department of Justice. The Times and the Post should have uncovered that the shameful smears against him were political and partisan in their investigations. That raises an important question. Did those news organizations do honest investigations, or were they simply hoping the charges were true because of some journalists' inherent bias against Trump, which were exhibited in hundreds of negative stories they printed about him? With regards to the Pulitzer Prize, or the Nobel Prize for that matter, awarded to President Obama in 2009 for nothing more than inspiring hope, it's becoming clear that the award is generally given to those on the left, by the left. Maybe the Times and the Post would be better served investigating the Pulitzer and Nobel committees for ignoring conservative voices. In the meantime, they should display the ethical good grace to return awards given under false premises. Then there is Trump's professed outrage following the news that a jury acquitted Michael Sussman, an attorney who once represented the Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party, of a charge of lying to the FBI. Our legal system is corrupt. Our judges and our justices are highly partisan, compromised, or just plain scared. Our borders are open, our elections are rigged, inflation rampant, gas prices and food costs are through the roof, our military leadership is woke, our country is going to hell, and Michael Sussman is not guilty, unquote. Trump wrote this on his Truth Social site. It's illogical to assume that Trump's opinion is biased, considering that the case revolved around alleged political dirty tricks against him. But even Georgetown University law professor Jonathan Turley said on Fox News, "I don't believe the jury got it right. No one could seriously not argue that it was a very favorable jury for the defense." Unfortunately, this case, like so many things that impact our daily lives, is now increasingly viewed through the prism of partisanship. It's a trend that bodes ill for all of us. Partisan award committees rewarding partisan media for political hit jobs and potentially biased jurors, exonerating the enemy of the enemy, or the enemy of my enemy, might seem like a good idea to like-minded ideologues, but it is ultimately a recipe for disaster for the rule of law. No one has to agree with Trump all the time, or ever, but sometimes he raises the alarm on fairness issues that are worth debating for the sake of our nation. Credit to Douglas McKinnon, a political writer and communications consultant who was a writer in the White House for Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, for the preceding piece. Now, for a man that I greatly admire, Mark Levin, the Great One, he commented on the Trump indictments Monday on that Fox Hannity show. Conservative talker Mark Levin criticized the Fulton County, Georgia indictment against former President Donald Trump. Levin questioned the validity of the charges, noting they were violating the Constitution's supremacy clause. Well, Stalin would be proud. I'm sure Putin is proud. I'm sure enemies are celebrating and our allies are appalled at what's going on here. What's happened here is, and Alan hit it pretty well there, Congress is supposed to make all these final decisions. You're not supposed to criminalize the challenging of electors or dual collectors of counting the votes and that sort of thing. These are prosecutors. These are grand juries, the legal system, the judicial system. It's completely been bastardized in these districts completely. We're going through the motions of justice here like autocratic regimes. We're going through the motions. We have judges. Most countries don't have grand juries. Grand juries were set up to help defendants. Now they help prosecutors. These are all Democrat cities going through the motions. The Democrat president, the Democrat attorney general, who's been doing a number of outrageous things. And this is a grave attack on our judicial system, our system of justice, and our election system, or like I like to call it, our system of injustice. This is an attack on the Republican Party. Don't you dare challenge elections. Don't you dare send in other electors. Don't you dare question machines. Don't you dare do a damn thing. Because nobody knows what the rules are in these Democrat cities or any of these states anymore. It is horrendous. I want to take a little bit of issue with my friend Jonathan Turley. It's not clear in the Constitution whether you can indict a sitting president. In fact, they don't even mention it. The reason you cannot indict a sitting president is because both parties have agreed under attorneys general of either party, the Office of Legal Counsel, that we don't indict sitting presidents because it will decapitate the government. At the same time, the man or woman in that office is trying to defend their liberty, trying to stay out of prison. So in basis of comedy, it's a comity, and bipartisanship, it's been decided you don't do that to a president. I would find it hard to believe that under Article 6, Paragraph 2 of the U.S. Constitution, commonly referred to as the Supremacy Clause, that any serious court like the Supreme Court would say, you know what? In the federal court, the president cannot indict himself. Excuse me. A president can pardon himself. A president cannot be indicted. But that said, when the local DA, they can. That's not going to fly. The Supremacy Clause established the Constitution and federal law, takes precedence over state laws and even state constitutions. And they're not going to allow state DAs or local district attorneys to interfere with the functioning of federal elections, any presidency. It's never been tried, but I seriously doubt they're going to let a DA do what the Attorney General of the United States is prohibited from doing. So let's put that on the table in Georgia, New York, number one. Number two, and I think it was Greg Bragg who brought this up. The nature of the statutes that they're using are so outlandish and so outrageous, and the way that they're looking for anything to twist any law, to twist any event, to try and take down Trump, rather than leave it to the voters. And the fact that they want these trials immediately during the Republican primary before the election should make it so abundantly clear that everybody what's going on. So the problem is, sorry, Alan, that the Democrat Party has become so radicalized and such a tool of its radical base that they are tonight, most of them, celebrating. They're outright giddy. They don't come out and say damn thing about Hunter Biden. They circle the wagons. Joe Biden, they don't even have a curiosity about anything related to Joe Biden, despite the fact there are predicates all over the place for a special counsel, and they are excited. They got Bragg in New York. They've got this one in Atlanta. They've got their hitman in Washington, D.C. He's using the wrong venue for a grand jury, using the Klan Act of all things, using the Enron laws. They're going to use a RICO statute. Ladies and gentlemen, the people of America, you know what's going on here. This is not justice. Just because you have a judge, just because you have grand juries, just because you have a fake media, that doesn't mean things are going right. You know how many countries have voted for tyranny? People vote for tyranny and then it's too late. They realize what they've done. You know how many dictators have been elected at the ballot box and how many people who have challenged them have been called enemies of the state and have been thrown in prison? Do you realize that when this is done, that Donald Trump will be facing 1,000 years in prison? 1,000 years! Do you even realize how ridiculous this is and how outrageous it is? Joe Biden going on vacation, the Attorney General of the United States never opens his big mouth. You got people who are self-righteously saying how wonderful the system is. Nobody's above the law. Are you kidding me? This is a great time in American history, and Alan, it's not for bananas, it's full banana. That's what it is. And if they can't figure out how to get this to the Supreme Court in time, which is not a slam dunk, and if the Supreme Court won't take it out, at least put all this mischief until after the election, the damage is forever. The bottom line is that this is out of control and America will not survive another 4 years of a Democrat president. We must take back the White House and the Senate and build on the House majority in order to start the right ship. It really doesn't matter which side of the aisle you rest upon. This is DEFCON 5 for America. Every citizen will suffer the consequences of an unfettered march towards Marxism. Democrats, don't fool yourselves. This is not your parents' or grandparents' Democrat Party. The Marxists have full control and they will not relinquish power willingly. It must be taken from one by any means necessary. And no, I'm not talking about an armed revolution or overthrowing of the U.S. government for all you watchers out there who may be with the federal government. Because in the end, government belongs to we the people, not the despots in the Congress or the White House. Don't be fooled. The left thinks they have Trump in a box. But it is my opinion that eventually Trump will prevail, whether in the initial trial or on appeal. Why? Because all these indictments are legal farce. And that's not my opinion alone. It is the opinion of many legal experts, real ones, and real constitutional experts who have dissected every one of these indictments from New York, D.C., Florida, and now Georgia. There's only one conclusion as to the reason for all the bogus indictments by Democrat judicial activists. The left is terrified of Trump winning the White House again. We, the people, can make their worst nightmare come true. Remember how the left went nuts in 2016? Let's do it again. Quote for today. Remember this, if you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. I want to thank you for the time tonight. I want to thank you for watching, listening. Don't forget to go to our website at www.hispanicpatriot.com at the bottom of our screen here and support the program with a donation of any amount. We need your help to get the word out. God bless you. God bless President Trump and his family. And God bless America. Good night.